There are even more options for Indiana at quarterback in the transfer portal.
You are Locked On Hoosiers, your daily podcast on the Indiana Hoosiers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into this, the Locked On Hoosiers podcast. I'm your man, Jacob Goins. I appreciate you being here, making this your first listen or your first watch every single day. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, which is your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start this season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Well, thank you so much for being here. Shout out to all of my everydayers for showing up Monday through Friday for this free Indiana podcast to you. Whether you're on YouTube, whether you're on audio, thank you so much for being here. We're slowly getting back to 100% health-wise here, so we're powering through this week, man, and there's still so much to talk about right now with signing day and transfer portal and basketball. We've got it all for you, and that's what we're talking about today. The Big Ten in college basketball looks scary good, like really, really good. We'll talk about that and what Indiana's got to do to catch up with a lot of the other teams in the Big Ten. Plus, we'll recap signing day for Indiana football. Historic day for Curt Cignetti and the staff. But the main focus for today's show is one that we're going to talk a lot about over the next several weeks. Transfer portal quarterbacks. There's two more that are planning on entering the transfer portal that I think Indiana needs to take a look at. I think could Indiana possibly think about going and getting these two guys? First, I want to talk about the Iowa quarterback, Cade McNamara. Now, before you start yelling and say, Jacob, not McNamara, not the Iowa quarterback, hear me out here, okay? Hear me out. He's planning to enter the transfer portal. He announced it. He's been at Iowa for a couple of years now, which seems crazy. It seems like people kind of forgot that he was there just because when he went to Iowa, it was like, oh, he's the saving grace. He's the quarterback we've been needing. We're going to be good. Maybe our offense can score more than 4 points a game. I mean, it's going to be great. And I don't know. It just didn't really pan out that way. I just don't think that marriage ever got off the ground, right? The honeymoon was fine, and then it went to crap as soon as you got home, right? And got back to reality. And so for Cade McNamara, he has announced that he is going to be entering the transfer portal. Reminder, that does not open until the 9th, right? So keep that in mind. That is next week. So people are just intending to enter the portal at this point. There's no official paperwork being done. Nobody's actually in the portal just yet. But McNamara, during his time at Iowa, he appeared in all of their games. He started their games throwing for 1,500 yards, 10 touchdowns, 8 interceptions with a 57% completion percentage. Now, he did have an ACL injury while he was at Iowa, so keep this in mind, okay? He was injured while he was there, so he didn't have a whole lot of, I guess, healthy games when he was with Iowa, and 10 touchdowns, 8 interceptions doesn't scream excitement, right? But I want to remind you that this was the starting quarterback for Michigan back in 2021 who led them to a Big Ten championship and put them in the college football playoff. Like, you have to keep that in mind, and the hope here would be that you can get him back to that status. Can Cignetti and Tino and those guys do it? I don't know. Do they want to do it? I don't know. I think it's a flight risk. I don't think he could get back to that point. I think you saw that with Iowa. Yes, Indiana's offense is better than Iowa's, but I don't know. It just seems kind of sketchy and risky to me to touch Cade McNamara, especially to bring him back into the Big Ten for his third Big Ten school. That would be kind of wild, especially when there's this guy in the transfer portal, because it was announced that Jackson Arnold, the quarterback from Oklahoma, is entering the transfer portal. And now we're talking business. Now we're talking legitimate options that I think Indiana should be considering. He is 6'1", 210 pounds, a sophomore at Oklahoma, has 2 years of eligibility. McNamara could get an extra year. He had COVID and injuries and things like that, so he has a couple of years left too. But Jackson Arnold has 2 years of eligibility remaining. And in his time at Texas, or at Oklahoma, he's from Texas. In his time at Oklahoma, he threw for 1,400 yards, 63% passing percentage, 12 touchdowns, just 3 interceptions. And he also rushed for 444 yards and 3 more touchdowns. That's not bad as a starter. That's not bad as a starter in his first year starting at Oklahoma. Again, let me say those again. 1,400 yards, 63% passing percentage, 12 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, ran for 450, and had 3 more scores. You're telling me that Indiana couldn't be successful with that? You're telling me that Indiana couldn't go and get him and use him, not as a one-year rental. This guy could be your starter for the next handful of years while your young guys continue to get better and get better and get better, and you still recruit young guys as well, right? We're going to talk about the signing day class coming up in just a few minutes. I think Jackson Arnold is one that Indiana highly needs to consider. And if you're Jackson Arnold, you should consider Indiana. That's a huge part of this argument too that you have to remember, right? The transfer portal, it's a two-way street. Yes, the organization, right? The program has to reach out and want you, but the player has to want you as the program too. But look at what they did for Curtis Rourke, a MAC player, really, really good. They made Curtis Rourke look insane because he's really, really good. You could do the same for a guy like Jackson Arnold. And if you put guys around him, including up front with the offensive line, which you desperately need to do through the transfer portal, which is what Indiana's focusing on right now, you could be a really good offense. I think Indiana should focus on Jackson Arnold. I think he's the best option we've seen so far. Maybe Caden Salter, maybe Miller Moss from USC. But I think at this point, Jackson Arnold is the one that everybody is like, oh, that's big time. The record doesn't show it in Oklahoma. They dealt with so many injuries. It's insane in one of the hardest schedules in college football down in the Southeastern Conference. Jackson Arnold is legit. I think Indiana should put their focus on him, and he could possibly be the next quarterback at Indiana. All right, coming up on Locked On Hoosiers, we're going to talk about more future guys for Indiana from the high school class. The signing day was yesterday. We'll kind of recap it, tell you what it means and what Indiana's going to do next. That's coming up here on Locked On Hoosiers. Today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers is brought to you by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. You've got Packers-Lions tonight. Yes, Packers-Lions. That's a huge game in the NFC North. Be sure that you're getting involved on FanDuel.com for Thursday night football. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, like you might tonight, you can check out the latest stats, view play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. So just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Welcome back into Locked On Hoosiers. Thank you so much for being here. And again, shout out to all of my everydayers. Your support has been incredible. So thank you so much for that. Really do appreciate you being here, supporting the show. If you're on video, all right, on the YouTube side, numbers are going insane over there. So be sure that you are liking the video, including this one. Do it right now. It helps us out. Be sure you comment down below. Who should the Hoosiers go after in the transfer portal? What players and what positions? I think we need to talk more outside the quarterback spot as well, especially on that offensive line. And then be sure that you subscribe to the channel. Okay, that number is going up like crazy too. We're almost to 3,700 subscribers. We're making a push to 4,000. Can we get there before the start of the new year? It's going to be tough, but I think we can do it. So be sure that you do that for me as well. And then those of you on audio, whatever platform you're on, that you listen to the show every single day, thank you so much for your support there. It really does mean the world. And those numbers are really starting to climb. So I appreciate you as well. Well, yesterday was a historic day for Indiana football. It was the first signing class, the full signing class under head coach Curt Cignetti. And we knew that it was going to be good. We expected it to be good. We were hoping it was going to be good. And I think that it was good. I think that's the best way. It was solid. It's not going to blow anybody out of the water. It's not going to make national headlines. It was just a solid start. And look, it's so tough now to recruit in high school football to big time programs because everybody's got the facilities, everybody's got the coaches, and everybody's got the money. Some have a lot more of those things than others, especially money, but you still have to have the right dudes in the winning ways to get the best players. I still firmly believe that. And I think Curt Cignetti is a guy that believes in that too. And so overall, you look at what Indiana did, right? 21 signees in the 2025 class. That's probably it. Don't think there's any surprises. Don't think there's anything coming, okay? I think 21 is solid where it stands. You've got a couple of highlights in there, some really good defensive guys, a nice corner. You got the flip from Louisville on the defensive side, right? I mean, you've got some things where you feel really good about this class. It's ranked 43rd nationally, according to 247. That's the site that I use. You can use whichever one you want. Ranked 43rd in the country. Problem is, right, the Big Ten and the SEC are tough this way because you look at your class ranking and you think, okay, that's solid. That's good. Problem is, you're buried deep in those conferences. 43rd in the nation for Indiana, but 13th out of 18 in the Big Ten, according to 247. That's the problem that you got to start addressing and trying to climb out of the hole. How do you do it? Keep winning games. Keep winning games and get more money. I mean, that's where it is nowadays, man. And I hate that that's it. I hate that it's not all about the money, but it's pretty dang close. And I mean, look, for example, look at Naeem Offord. Did you guys see this situation? The corner who has been committed to Ohio State. He's a Southern kid. He's an Alabama commit or an Alabama kid from like a high school player down there. He was committed to Ohio State forever. They thought Auburn was going to flip him. Then Oregon comes in the day of, night before, pays him several $1 million is what they're saying. And now he's an Oregon Duck. What? For a corner, they paid several $1 million, and it was the night before from Ohio State to flip to Oregon. Unbelievable. That's what you're dealing with here on signing day with big-time high school recruits. Now, Indiana's nowhere near that point yet. We can be, and I believe that we can, but you've got to work your way up to something like that. The flip that I was talking about, remember, it's the edge, Tyron Burris. Remember, he flipped from Louisville to Indiana a while back, and I think that's a huge deal. I think getting things like that is something that will make headlines. That's something that people in the recruiting world will take notice of, and other recruits take notice of as well. It's like, oh, he flipped from a big-time program in the ACC to a growing big-time program in the Big Ten to Indiana, right? It's those types of things that make waves for Indiana. And so overall, I like the class. I do. I think it's good. I think it's solid. Is it what I don't know. It's hard to talk about expectations with this class because we kind of knew what it was going to be, right? I mean, we knew what this was going to be when signing day approached. Indiana's not at the point where we get some major flip from one program to us, but we're also not at the point either where we have somebody just massive that everybody wants and we might lose that kid. You see what I'm saying? Like, we're not to that level yet. So it wasn't as dramatic. There wasn't as much drama on signing day in Bloomington as we saw in some other big time cities. And for year one, fine by me. Fine by me. Now, here's what Indiana needs to do moving forward. I told you about how Indiana is full focus on the transfer portal now because of the calendar and how it's all jacked up, right? The high school recruiting stuff, you're done with that for now. You'll focus on 2026 in a little bit. Now it's time for the transfer portal. That opens up on the 9th. Okay, that opens up coming up starting next week. Then you've got a month, not even a month. You've got a few weeks to lock it down and get after. The dead period ends. You have this weekend to start bringing kids on campus if you want to, and you're going to have to. You're going to start bringing them in like crazy. And that is going to be such a hectic few weeks with bowl games, playoff, championships, transfer portal, all Christmas, all happening around the same time, which is why the calendar is jacked up. The calendar is really screwed up. And you've heard so many coaches talk about this. Think about us. Think about Indiana right now. If we still make the college football playoff, which most people are predicting that we will, we're going to make the playoff. We're going to be playing throughout December and into January. But yet the portal opens up next week and we're trying to build for the future. We're trying to find a quarterback. We're trying to find an offensive line. We're trying to replace some dudes on the defensive side, especially in the secondary and on the defensive line. You've got to hit the portal hard. So if you're Curt Cignetti and the staff, what do you focus on? Do you focus on the transfer portal or do you focus on the college football playoff? Which one do you do? You have to split your time, but it seems impossible. It seems impossible to do because of everything happening. It's dumb. It's almost, if you're building for the future, it's advantageous to not make the postseason because then you can just go full portal mode and you don't have to worry about a game or practices. It's a good problem to have. Yes. It's a great problem to have. Oh, nobody's going to feel bad for you, right? Nobody's going to feel bad for Indiana or Ohio State or Oregon for making the playoff and not being able to focus on the portal as much. Oh, you poor thing. You made the college football playoff, right? I get all that. But Indiana, again, we're not at the point where our logo and our money speaks for itself. We still have to hard recruit. Whereas Ohio State and Oregon, they still have to, but their logo and their dollar signs do a lot of that for them. Does that make sense? So yes, we are at a disadvantage. And Curt Cignetti's got to find a way to overcome that. How do you do that? I don't know. Excuse me. I don't know. I really don't. That's why he's the coach. You've got to allot your time. You better have a great staff. You better have a great staff that you trust in terms of recruiting and game planning. Split your time the best. And that's your pitch, I think. That's your pitch is like, look, sorry I don't have more time. We're competing for a championship. Don't you want to come and be a part of that? Don't you want to come help that? You can help us get back here. Maybe that's the pitch for Indiana as they try and reload for next year. And hopefully they're preparing for a college football playoff. All right, coming up in our final segment on Locked On Hoosiers, flipping over to basketball, and the Big Ten looks good, like scary good. And Indiana, we better watch out. We'll talk about that in our final segment coming up on Locked On Hoosiers. Final segment here on the show today. Appreciate you being here again. Apologies for not sounding my best, not feeling my best right now. We're fighting through it this week, but hopefully once we get through the week, into the weekend, kind of rest up, and we'll be ready to go for next week. And Indiana basketball is back in action tomorrow. That's on Friday, taking on Miami of Ohio. But you've seen a lot of teams already around the Big Ten get their Big Ten play started. And my goodness, man, this conference is... it's insane. I mean, it's like really, really good. To the point where I'm starting to worry about it a little bit. I mean, there are really good teams and some scary results that we've seen already in Big Ten play. How about Michigan going on the road and taking down top 15 Wisconsin on Tuesday? That's a huge win. Iowa beats Northwestern the other night. UCLA, they're solid. They beat Washington the other day on Tuesday when we played Sam Houston. Oregon is still really good. They're a top 15 team. They go on the road to USC and get a win 68-60. Did we see what Maryland did? Did anybody see what the Terps did in the assassination of Ohio State? I mean, just ripped them to shreds. You know, when you chicken in a crock pot and you take the fork prong things and you just shred it to pieces. Well, that's what Maryland did. They threw him in there and just ripped him a new one. It was unbelievable to watch. They were up by nearly 40 in this game at one point. Looked like Indiana playing Louisville, didn't it? 83-59. Maryland is really, really good. And I'll be honest. Ohio State, they got that win over Texas to start the year, and I was like, yep, here we go. They're what I thought they were. Then they lost to A&M, and they've put up a lot of points since. I still think they're a good team, but they lost to Pitt 91-90, and they lost to Maryland in that beatdown. I don't know what Ohio State is. I've watched a handful of their games, and I still need to learn more about them. I just don't know what they are. They're going to be good, and they're going to be dangerous, but on any given night, you see what can happen with them. I don't know if that says more about Ohio State in this game or if it says more about the Big Ten. You also have Michigan State go on the road and beat Minnesota, who's not good, 90-72. I say all of that for this. Indiana is not playing like the best team in the Big Ten. Can Indiana be the best team in the Big Ten? I think so. I think we're the most talented team in the Big Ten. I think Purdue's better than I thought they were going to be. And they've still got a couple of tough games in their non-conference schedule. But I think Indiana has to step it up here. And that's not a secret. That's not world-breaking news here. We have to be better. Because the Big Ten is no joke. It's bigger now, it's stronger now, and it's better now. And you have to be on your game every single night. Even with, Purdue plays Penn State tonight. Even with Indiana, as we go and play Minnesota and Nebraska. Minnesota's terrible, but they're still good enough to come in and beat you. And that would be a game that Indiana would lose. Let me rephrase. That would be a game that Mike Woodson would lose. And you start losing Big Ten games like that, and he won't make it through the season. I know some of you may wish that upon him, and I hope not, but that's just reality, dude. This conference is legit. You're going to have 9, 10 double-digit teams into the NCAA tournament from this conference. And Indiana's nowhere near that yet. We're a tournament team, yes, but we are not good enough to compete for this league right now. That's what I'm trying to say. We're not good enough yet. We have to step it up. Mike Woodson has got to find a way to keep it clean here on the show. He's got to find a way to get over himself and change a little bit and make this team into play 2024 basketball. Please, offensively, defensively, get out of the 80s and run legitimate offense. We've got to play much better on defense. We've got to come out with energy and run. If you don't, the Big Ten will eat us alive, and Mike Woodson won't make it through the season. I'm just telling you like it is right now. If Mike Woodson does not get it together, this team will lose. They'll lose a lot, and he will not make it through this season because just look around the Big Ten. Do you want to play some of those teams right now? I don't. We're not ready for that. We're not ready for it. We weren't ready for Atlantis. We weren't ready for, and we're not ready for the Big Ten. And that's scary, man. For a season we thought was going to be really, really good, we're already nervous. And it's the first week of December. All right, that's it. That's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers. Look, I appreciate you being here. I really do. It's a lot of fun doing the show. Hopefully you're enjoying it. Hopefully you're liking all the content. A lot of football stuff. Transfer portal's about to go crazy, and more basketball as we move throughout the week and throughout the month as well. Be sure if you're on YouTube to like the video. It gets it out there. Helps other people find it, okay? Commenting helps as well. Helps the algorithm on YouTube for whatever reason. So be sure that you comment your thoughts down below and then subscribe to the channel. All right, we're getting 4,000 before the new year. We can do it. It's going to be a push, but I think we can get there. So you can be a part of that. And then for audio, be sure that you follow us there and turn on those notifications as well. We're back tomorrow to wrap up the week. All right, Hoosier fans. So until then, stay safe, and I'll talk to you later.